Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
In the past, it has been difficult and costly to approximate genuine face-to-face human interaction across computer networks. Conference XP is a research project exploiting the bandwidth of Internet 2 to create a low-cost, highly scalable platform for high-fidelity, real-time collaboration over the Internet. Recently, the Conference XP team and 3 universities collaborated to explore the impact of this technology on education by delivering a master's-level university course simultaneously to 4 campuses.
We've got dramatically increased bandwidth, dramatically increased computing power. The goal of Conference XP is to take advantage of those, to make internet conferencing interactive, much more like being there. The University of Washington has been teaching courses between the UW campus and the Microsoft campus for a number of years using this technology. Microsoft actually challenged us a year ago to include additional sites. Conference XP allowed us to have 4 classrooms at San Diego, Berkeley, the University of Washington, and Microsoft to link them together as if we were almost in the same classroom sharing the same experience.
Question from Seattle. So presumably society responds over a period of decades, or is there data from, say, farm employment decrease or something like that?
Well, farming is actually a bad example for you because in the United States, at least, people are pulled out of farming.
The fact that this course involved so many sites allowed us to include different student perspectives, different faculty perspectives, multiple students from different sites working on projects together, great guest lecturers who were excited at the chance to reach so many people. Brad DeLong is a superb economist from Berkeley who spoke to us about the economics of offshoring, a very hot topic these days. Just an opportunity that University of Washington students would never have normally. The focus of Conference XP is the live experience, which is great, but it's also archived, and that's a huge benefit to the student. If the student misses a class, the entire class is there. If the student wants to review the material later, the material is available. This isn't about technology, it's about teaching and learning. The opportunity is to teach a much richer course than I could possibly teach on my own because I have my perspective. And when I'm involved with other faculty and students from other universities, I've got a huge breadth of experience that I can bring to the course. It makes it totally different and totally better. This is a great experience, and it's one that we're going to continue.
Good morning, thank you, and welcome to the Hyatt, and as Kevin said, to our 4th annual workshop now. We have decided to make this an annual event, and one of the things that's on our agenda for tomorrow afternoon is to chat with some of you about forming a formal program committee and a steering committee to help take this forward. We certainly had some interesting ideas pop up last night at dinner as well. My name's Todd Needham. I'm a senior program manager for the Conference XP project. I've been involved with the Conference XP project for about 5 years now. The first 4 of those fairly informally as just an advocate and a big end user of Conference XP, and because I was the liaison to the Internet 2 community. I've been at Microsoft 19 years. That's a really long time in any kind of dog years or Internet years. I started out as a program manager for LAN Manager and then SQL Server, and then I went and lived in Australia for a year and a half running Microsoft consulting services for Commonwealth Bank, which was a great deal of fun. I came back and spent probably 5 of the funnest years I've ever had in the developer relations group, which was a whole bunch of type A overachievers who were going out and trying to convince the rest of the world to adopt Windows as a platform. And 9 years ago, I got tapped for picking up the university relations work and moved over to Microsoft Research and never looked back. So it's been a very exciting time for me. What keeps me excited? Before I jump in, let me tell you why I like the Conference XP project so much and why I took this on as a program manager. I love the types of things that these folks have done from a design point of view. I love what they're able to deliver in terms of scalable, high-fidelity, real-time conferencing. We've been big supporters and fans of the access grid for a number of years. And I don't want you to think that these are necessarily competitive projects, although there is some overlap there. But at the end of the day, we wanted something that could really exploit Windows and the advanced multimedia capabilities that we had there. Today we're doing broadcast quality audio and video. The video we can do in real time, 640 by 480 at 30 frames a second. We've also done NTSC 720 by 480 at 30 frames a second. And as you'll learn later today, we're working with a number of people, including the Research Channel digital video folks, on real-time HD encoding. We have a way now to do capture and archive. So Kevin alluded to this a little bit, and I'd like to pull in a little bit of detail for you on that. The exciting thing for me is when we looked at that classroom in the video just now, that was a four-way class being taught between Microsoft, University of Washington, UC Berkeley, and UC San Diego. We've been able to do distance learning using a variety of technologies for some time. Most of those have been two-way or one-to-many. We got a remote lecture coming in sort of thing. And we have simple ways to capture that sort of content today. In the Microsoft world, that's Windows Media. It could be the Apple QuickTime solutions. It could be a homegrown MPEG-based system. But the thing that most people haven't been doing today is finding ways to do N-way classrooms and capture. So that class that Ed Lazowska was talking about, I think, is very interesting because they are able to pull in the best lecturers or the best experts from a variety of different schools to teach a single class. And I think that's a model that we're going to see adopted more and more. And the interest for me in Conference XP is we have a nice way to capture that content and make it readily available to anybody who wants to watch it. So Kevin is very big on finding ways to start regularly capturing and archiving the types of lectures and instruction that are going on in schools. That's a very big motivator for him and a very big part of the focus for Conference XP. And the last one, as I said, the opportunity to move into high definition. So there are a number of high definition real-time video projects out there today. DVTS is one. I think Mike Wellings is going to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing as well. The interesting thing for me with Conference XP is that because they're using the Windows Media Codecs, we're able to get this down into, for those of you who are HD people, a 720p stream down to 5 megabit per second. That makes HD on the net very, very accessible, as opposed to a lot of the HD projects today that are trying to send raw or not doing real-time encoding. So let me step you through a little bit on the RTC side of things. Whenever I go out and talk about Conference XP, I always get the question of, or the scenario of, we're trying to decide which video conferencing or real-time communications product to use. And it's almost a presentation in and of itself to explain why that's a wrong way to look at it. But let me try and do that in one slide. We've got all these different scenarios for real-time collaboration, real-time communication. We've got the one-to-one scenario. This is typically Windows Messenger or Yahoo Messenger or AIM or a number of other IM-based systems that have video and audio capability. When I do one-to-one stuff with people in academia, I still prefer to use Messenger, even though I'm the product manager for Conference XP, because it's got a support infrastructure that's commercial there. It supports millions of conversations a day. It has very high fidelity application sharing. It has a simple way to archive all of the text, and it's searchable on my local hard drive. There's no server components. It's peer-to-peer once you establish a connection. And for me, that usability is just incredible. But it's really only two-way if you're going to be doing audio and video or application sharing. Then we've got the netcasting video scenario. This is in the corporate space or even the academic space. It's the president or CEO who typically wants to reach all the people in their company. In academia, it's sort of the guest lecture sort of model. And most of that is, Windows Media. There's real player types of technologies there. A number of homegrown streaming scenarios there. But it's really just the one-to-many scenario, and it scales very well for one-to-many. And typically, this is what's driving multicast deployment within academia. And it's also driving multicast deployment within corporations. So we don't have multicast on the commodity internet today, but we do have more and more companies installing this internally because of this scenario. The president wants to be able to reach everybody in the company by video conference at once. How do they do that? The next, another scenario here is in the business community, the one-to-many with PowerPoint and audio sorts of things. This is what Microsoft Live Meeting, or as you may recall before we acquired them, Placeware is called, or the WebEx type of technologies. This is reasonably scalable. It typically uses telephony bridges for the audio, but shares out PowerPoint and provides you some rudimentary capability of looking at how many people are logged in, who's logged into the session or participating, and some type of feedback mechanism, usually some type of chat or question asking capability. But it's really geared toward a person giving a presentation over the commodity internet or unicast networks to a large number of people. Then we have the high-end scenarios, things that Conference XP, Halo, the Access Grid, a new product that was recently talked about from Cisco come into play. And that's really the space that Conference XP is targeting. Many-to-many, very few limitations on scalability, broadcast quality, audio and video, and hopefully moving to high definition in the near future. And that's just a few scenarios. So I don't want you to get hung up on we're here to try and choose a particular real-time communications or video conferencing platform to work from, because you're going to find we didn't even talk about things that are popular on the Mac today, the iSight, iChat types of systems. But there are going to be many different systems used internally, even within your university. And this is a pitch to not think about trying to choose a particular one, but instead look at what you're trying to do and choose the best platform for what you're trying to work with. So a little bit about the design goals on Conference XP. So the team that set out 5 years ago, let me take a moment to introduce a few people for you here real quick. So Jason, can you stand up? This is Jason Van Eaton. He's our lead developer on Conference XP right now. So a big round of applause for Jason. Thank you. Directly behind him is Matt McGinley, who's been doing, a lot of you who've had tech support issues or have seen us in some of the test venues that have been running the scalability tests. Matt has been providing great support for the four-way class that we run with the University of Washington, as well as helping individuals troubleshoot and test out their node setup. We also have Soleil, where are you? Slay, who was an intern with the Conference XP team last year and did a lot of work on the reflector and IPv6 support. Am I missing? Who else is here? Is that everyone, Jason? So, okay. Tim. I'm sorry. Tim is here. So I didn't even see you come in, Tim. Tim is also part of the development team, is primarily responsible for test, and has been collaborating with Linkiat So from University of Nebraska on some projects. And I think those are all the internal folks on the Conference XP team. You met Kevin already. And we also have Jaime Puente, who's a part of, can you stand up real quick? Jaime Puente is a program manager in the External Research and Programs Group, the same team the rest of us are in, responsible for Latin America. So, thank you. So the team, when they did design work, had several goals. The first one was ease of use, ease of configuration, and ease of installation. We wanted a system that had a typical Windows shrink wrap sort of experience. I click a button to start up the installation, ask me a few simple questions, and I'm up and running. Now, anybody here who's had to install real-time communications product knows that I'm grossly oversimplifying. How many people here are familiar with the access grid? For show of hands? Okay. So there's a little joke for the rest of you. I have good news and bad news. The good news is we have the same networking and audio requirements as the access grid. The bad news is we have the same networking and audio requirements as the access grid. So that ease of use, installation, and configuration is really about the software experience. And when you're putting together any type of system like this, there are so many things that are just beyond the control of the software. All the configurations and installations that we have at Microsoft Research, the 2 lecture rooms and the multiple conference rooms, we had to have professional audio folks come in, our own internal folks, but come in and do the setup for us. Tuning Gettners, getting the video right. The kind folks at Research Channel came over and helped us consult on some of the lighting issues and camera issues, and helped us advise us on some upgrades for our lecture room as well. But for the software experience, those were our goals. Flexibility. A lot of people look at Conference XP as a tool for doing video conferencing, distance education, etc. And that's fine. That's one of the primary uses of here. But it's also a platform. And I'll show you some examples of people who are taking Conference XP because of the flexible architecture, because of the relatively small size of the code. Early decision to go with managed code makes it very easy to embed Conference XP into other applications. And that's been a very interesting experience as we work with the real-time communications research community in academia. We made the decision to go all managed code and to use Windows Media. We've been, as I said, working with the Access Grid community for some time. We felt that we could simplify the design of this product if we chose a single platform and if we went with the native multimedia support, Windows Media codecs that were built into that. And that made bootstrapping the entire project much quicker. Infinite scalability, you'll see the little star I put next to that one. But at the end, we did want to provide something that operated in pure peer-to-peer fashion, that was limited really only by, do I have enough network bandwidth and do I have powerful enough PCs on the other end? So the last scalability test that we ran with 4.0 beta, we had 15 simultaneous audio and video streams running 320 by 240. I think we can go higher than that without a problem. It's just a question of, do we have powerful enough PCs on the other end? Even a modest PC will have trouble when you're trying to decode that much video. I'll talk a little bit about configuration in a minute there. Pure peer-to-peer operation, and then of course broadcast quality audio and video. So we started out with basic FireWire camera support. We really liked the Sony DFW VL500 cameras. You plugged them in, they worked, they were recognized, they had nice zoom, but of course the community really wanted the support for all of the existing AG-based Sony and Canon pan-tilt zoom cameras, so we added that with the 3.5 release. Let me talk a little bit about why we say it's for research, government, and academic networks. So, as I said, we took a multicast dependency. We know that Internet 2 and other similarly multicast-enabled networks are a requirement here. Canary in Canada, ESNet in China, Red Clara for the Latin America. We have, like many other solutions in this space, a unicast multicast reflector. We say limited scalability, and someone asked me, "Oh, well, how many people can participate in a unicast-based session?" And I asked around, and nobody seemed to know what the limitations of that are. So you'll actually be seeing an invite from me next week when we release the 4.0 code to participate via a reflector, and let's see just how high we can scale. It'll be interesting to see if we run into limitations, if we run into actually any limitations beyond bandwidth out of a single server. Very limited deployment of commercial multicast. There are a few ISPs that are providing that capability, mostly via tunneling. And then, of course, corporations are deploying it internally, but not much commercial external connectivity. And lastly, most people who are deploying multicast are doing so with fixed IP addresses, which is almost anathema, it seems like, to IT staff who want to simplify things, plug in the computer, get an address via DHCP. We also have a very high-end node requirement. For the people that we've donated nodes for, they always get the highest end machine that I can lay my hands on. Right now, we're typically installing Dell XPS 700s with the dual 2-core extreme processors. We want to provide the highest quality experience, the lowest latency we can. Since we only do a best effort to synchronize audio and video, basically allowing the encoder to do that, the faster the processor, the less latency that we have. And of course, it's not unusual to have 3 or more displays. When you looked at the video there, I think you saw the way we've got all of the classrooms set up for that 4-way master's program that we've been running. Typically 2 screens in front, one running whatever presentation is being given, one displaying all the remote participants. But also, if you paid attention to that video, you also saw that in the back of the room we had projectors or large TV displays that were also presenting all of the remote participants. That way, the audience sees presentation and remote participants, and the lecturer is able to see all of the remote participants as well. And that configuration, we think, has worked out very well. Combined with high-quality audio, mostly drop-down ceiling mics, means that all the students can hear and talk to all the other students as well as the lecturers at the same time. Lastly, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in detail further on, Conference XP has always been a shared source project out of Microsoft Research with source code as well as executables available for research, teaching, and education purposes. And we also have a number of people who are licensing Conference XP commercially, looking at advanced conferencing solutions for corporate America. So there are 4 components to Conference XP. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I think that most of you are already familiar with Conference XP at this point. There's a client. This is a picture of the client when it starts up. It connects to a venue server. We wanted to make it, as trivial as possible to get started and be up and productive with Conference XP. And, excuse me. And joining a Conference XP is as simple as selecting the particular icon of the room that you want to enter. We also, as I said, created a general purpose, very powerful archive and capture system called Archive Service. This is a screenshot from the archive server that's set up on the Internet 2 Commons today. It's a public archive server that anyone can connect to and record and play back from. And we're in the process of just cleaning up the test stuff, so that'll always be available for, and we'll keep data there for about 30 days for people to play and test with the archive system. But it's a very simple user interface. When I do playback, the playback experience is just like being part of the conference itself. Conference XP starts up, all the windows start up, all the playback is in order. One of the early architectural decisions that we made with Conference XP was that everything is going to be a stream. So that made it a very consistent way to record everything and to present all of that back. And I even have the ability to select which particular streams I want to play back. If I only want to get the keynote speaker, for instance, out of the archive, I can select that audio and video and just play that one back. And lastly, we have, as I said, a Unicast Multicast reflector service. Fairly straightforward to implement, and as I said, next week we hope to run some scalability tests on that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the architecture here. Jason, during his talk, is going to go over this in more detail, talk about the new features that we have in the 4.0 release and some of the things that we're looking at for the near future. The point for me, again, is simply to emphasize that Conference XP is not just an end-user tool, but we created this as a platform for other people to build solutions on top of or to customize for their particular needs. Kevin told you that we have a number of Conference XP-enabled conference rooms at Microsoft. We run, let me back up a second. When Rick came over and formed Microsoft Research, he very much kept, as Kevin alluded, the academic mindset. We run a guest lecture system, an invited guest lecture system program in Microsoft Research that brings in 10 guest lecturers per week. 2 per day, fixed slots. And these are the rooms that we have it in. This is the small lecture room, which we also happen to use for teaching for the 4-way class. And we have a large lecture room that holds about 150 people max that is used for the larger lectures. Those are now, as of last week, both Conference XP enabled. And we're going to start playing with letting people remotely participate in certain guest lectures in real time. So, as he also said, we're already archiving all of those. We have over 600 talks archived up on top, up at the Research Channel's digital well. So if you want to take a look at that, researchchannel.org, select programs by institution, and then click on the Microsoft Research, and you'll get a complete listing of all of those guest lectures. What you can't see in this room, or in this picture very well, is that at the top of the screen, you'll see hanging from the ceiling 16 microphones that we put in. Those are tied into a Gettner echo cancellation unit. And you can't see that we have a large plasma display in the back of this room as well. That's hanging from the ceiling that allows the remote lecturer, when they're lecturing from this room, to see remote participants as well. Innovation, advancing the state of the art. These are the things that are driving us on a lot of the Conference XP projects. This is the Australian School of the Air. We found out about this sort of through the back channel. They took Conference XP, adopted it for teaching via satellite in the Australian outback. And if you think about that for a minute, your first question, or maybe your second question, is how do they deal with the latency? And the answer is they don't. All the students have already learned every telephone call they ever make has, the satellite latency. All the instruction they received via radio had the latency. So for them, it was a natural way to do this. But all of a sudden now they've got audio and video types of capability, shared PowerPoint types of capability, and the ability to chat with other students in their class, in their virtual class. It was a very cool application. Is Michael here from? He didn't make this trip. He has a nice case study written up on this as well if you're interested in more details on that. You're going to hear from Gino Sorcinelli today from the University of Massachusetts Amherst Eisenberg School of Management. He's going to talk about a four-way class that they've been teaching, which has been an international class. It involves, in the U.S., Bentley College and UMass, and overseas, Ulster and the National University of Ireland, Galway. Let me go back to that one real quick. One of the interesting things about his approach, and he's going to emphasize this in his talk, is that he's not looking at Conference XP as the solution to his distance education. It's simply the real-time component of a solution. And he's going to talk about the work that he's done with other products for the asynchronous components of that, including SharePoint and Groove, for all of the offline types of collaboration that need to be done there. So I think that's a strong point to emphasize here as well. We mentioned that the research channel is hosting all of our videos. They're also doing a lot of work in HD TV and HD conferencing, and they're going to talk a little bit about what they're working on, attempting to enable real-time HD encoding for Conference XP. This is a project from a couple years back that a number of students at Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology at Moscow State University did. And it's not so much about teaching or learning, but it is about collaboration. It's an online musical collaboration application. And what they did, again, Conference XP provided the high-quality audio. They can turn off compression and get the raw audio. They had a low-bandwidth video system, and the latency was low enough for them to actually be able to create an application for doing online musical collaboration. I don't think Juilliard would probably have picked up this application, but for a student project, I thought this was a very cool example of what you can do when you're building on top of something like the Conference XP platform. MIT, some students there had a similar thing. How many people recognize this drawing? AutoCAD, there's a few people that picked this up. I like this just because this is the standard drawing you always got, I don't know, starting about 15, 20 years ago when you bought a copy of AutoCAD. This was the default drawing that they chose. But this was another example of an online collaborative drawing and engineering application that they developed, and then they grabbed Conference XP to be able to provide the audio and video components and embed that within their application. Richard Anderson is going to talk about the classroom presenter work that he's done. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here. I tend to think of it as a super version of the presenter software that's built into Conference XP. Richard actually took a sabbatical and came over and worked in the Conference XP project a couple of years ago and did the development on the version of presenter that's built into Conference XP today. So if you're looking for a higher end version that has better student-teacher sorts of features, I'd encourage you to take a look at the work that he's done there. Fred Vidian is also with us here from University of Washington. And Fred developed an application for Windows Media Transcoding that will pull individual video and audio streams out of our archive server and give you a single Windows Media file for playback on any platform. Very useful tool, very popular amongst Conference XP archive users. On the first slide, I think I included the Internet 2 Commons ID. How many people are familiar with Internet 2 Commons? It's an umbrella group that pulls in a bunch of experimental and commercial real-time communications projects. Internet 2 began hosting a Conference XP venue server, archive server, and reflector a little over a year ago when Chris Moffett was in charge of this project. We're continuing that and upgrading those services next week to the 4.0 builds when we release those as well. So if you're interested again in a public archive server, that's one place to test. You'll also find the new Conference XP client has a number of pre-populated venue servers, archive servers, and reflectors to choose from. And we're planning on a monthly basis, as people register new publicly available nodes, updating the configuration files for Conference XP 4.0. You'll just be able to download that, and those will automatically be pre-populated in your configuration dialogues. And I'd like to thank Jason for making that change in the 4.0 client. I think tomorrow on the schedule we have Professor Linkiat So from University of Nebraska, who's going to talk about the iMinds project and how they're using Conference XP there. It is, as I understand it, a system for measuring and analyzing automatically student and instructor use of Conference XP. I'll let him go into the detail on that. We're also working with Latin America on a new project. It's not complete yet. It's something we call Latin American Virtual Institute. I don't know if there's a formal final name for that yet, but we're working with the Red Clara networks and the Red Clara backbone there and major universities in Latin America to create a virtual university, virtual institute based on the Conference XP technology as well. And we have a number of representatives here if you're interested in talking to that. Jaime Puente in particular can speak to that in more detail. What are we doing for community? So some of you have already started to participate in this. Where's Adam Eck? I'd like to thank Adam in particular, who's been a very active participant in helping other users in the Conference XP community. This is the Conference XP forum that's now a part of the massive Microsoft Online forums. We'd been struggling for some time with a scalable, reliable, managed system for this. We had our own private message boards for a while, but we found it was much easier to leverage the existing infrastructure that Microsoft puts in place for this, and thus these forums have been very good about helping out end users with configuration issues. We've got developers coming on there and asking questions, and between Adam and Jason and I and a few other people who have been very active there, it's been a great forum for helping end user support. And there's a second one we're doing. How many people here are familiar with Codeplex? Only a few. How many people are familiar with SourceForge? Okay. So we're going to pretend this part isn't being recorded. The SourceForge folks, the Codeplex folks will never like this. They deliberately try to avoid comparisons to SourceForge. But at the end of the day, this is our community source code development site. It is in some ways a competitor to SourceForge. I'm interested in it for a couple reasons. One, we allow you to use any license that you want up on Codeplex. So we're not restricting you to the OSI approved licenses. The second thing is this whole development community was built on top of something called Visual Studio Team Services Foundation Server. And at the end of the day, what that really means is it's trivial to work with projects on this site directly from within our development environment, Visual Studio. And that was something that people really wanted strongly. A simple way to integrate with the repository. They didn't require uploading and downloading files and checking things in and out in a outside of their development environment. So I think that as people start to pick up on this, they'll really like it. There's several hundred projects up there right now. Feel free to take a look if you'd like it. Conference XP should be up there next week. Everybody needs a vision statement. So I told you what gets me excited in the morning, and this vision statement is sort of designed to emphasize that or summarize that. What do I want to see in 3 to 4 years? I really want to see that scenario that we had with from the video, that case study there, and work like Gino Sorcinelli's been doing with 4 universities, including international collaborations, become more common. I think there's a tremendous opportunity to pull in the best and the brightest and to solve some of the problems that Kevin alluded to. There just aren't enough qualified teachers in all the places that we have strong interest in computer science. And I think this is a great opportunity for international collaboration and best-of-breed type classes and instruction using Conference XP. And I expect that over the next 3 to 4 years, as network improves, as we get better ways to diagnose multicast connectivity, as we find cheaper ways to install high-quality audio and video systems in classrooms and improve automated camera management, that we're going to see more and more of these N-way sorts of classes. And I want to see that captured, and I want to see it available and archived for offline use. We're in discussion. Sorry, let me step back. We really wanted to have this conference be Conference XP enabled for remote participation. At the end of the day, we couldn't get the network bandwidth that we needed in a guaranteed way to be able to do that. Next year, we're going to deliberately choose a venue that we know will have the network bandwidth to be able to do that. Certainly, we had a lot of international inquiry I told you, I think you saw that we capped this conference at 50 people. We filled that in 12 days. That was amazing. And can I have a quick show of hands? I think we've got about 20% international participation here. How many people came here from outside the U.S.? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So yeah, 20% of the people here came from outside the U.S. Big international interest in this. We're talking with Internet 2 about Conference XP enabling their spring meeting. They hold that meeting in D.C. In the same hotel every year. All the networking is already set there. We know the fixed rooms that would be there. We're trying to figure out how much it would cost to actually do something like this. What I would like to see is that conferences that I attend, 3 or 4 years from now, routinely enable high-quality remote participation, so that if I can't travel or if I can't stay there for the whole thing, or for whatever reason, that I can still have a very high-quality remote participation experience. And I think that conferences are looking at this as a way, especially given how hard it is sometimes to get international travel visas these days, as a way to not just increase participation, but also increase revenue. If you can provide a high enough quality remote participation experience, I think you can also charge people to attend conferences that way. Content capture. So we're also talking with the Research Channel folks and our own Microsoft Studios folks and our Windows Media folks and the Microsoft Producer folks about hosting a 2-day event on content capture, of which Conference XP would be a part. We think that the digital library sort of initiative of video recording classrooms and guest lectures hasn't taken off as well as it could. I mean, Microsoft has been a big fan of this, thus the 600-plus lectures that we've put up on Research Channel today. But there's so much more that could be done there. It's just people haven't been presented with the information. They haven't been given the, sort of the value proposition for why they should make this sort of investment. And we think we're in the planning phases right now to hold a 2-day workshop here in Redmond in probably the second quarter of next year on how to capture content from your classrooms, how to handle automated camera management, audio configuration issues, format and storage decisions. That helps you with the local sort of weighted capture. It can also help you with the I want to give a remote lecture scenario. But then we take Conference XP and throw that in there, and I think that we can do a good argument to saying if you're willing to put in the installation and the infrastructure to capture your lectures and your classroom instruction, then it's a trivial additional amount of work to enable N-way sort of collaboration in that configuration. A little bit extra hardware, reliable networking, but the audio and the video capture remains the same for either system. We also think that there's an opportunity for somebody like the Research Channel to promote the digital well as an archive for this stuff. There are a lot of people who would love to capture or who capture it today but don't really want to get into the database and archiving side of that. And if we had a simple way to upload and search all of the metadata associated with a particular lecture online, that would be a valuable thing for academic folks. Conference XP localized for 10 languages. We've already had strong interest for localized versions of Conference XP. We're working right now on aggregating all of the string and text resources in Conference XP into a single file to better enable localization. And we already have someone lined up to do Japanese and Chinese localized versions of Conference XP. Hopefully those will be out by, I'm guessing, about January or so. And then a number of other people who wanted in other languages that would be able to do this fairly trivially. And lastly, high definition. I'm a big fan of high definition. We don't need it for everything. I don't need it for two-way. But when we're talking about rooms and classrooms and things like that, you get so much more information from a high definition video stream that I'm hoping that will become the default. As I said, Mike Wellings from Research Channel is going to talk a little bit about the HD work that they're looking at. But in a nutshell, we've got a $30,000 real-time encoding board, and we've got a $10,000 pan-tilt-zoom HD camera with remote control from Sony. So for $40,000, which may sound like a lot of money, and probably is, but for $40,000 we should be able to add real-time HD encoding to an existing Conference XP system. And I think that's a very interesting price point, and of course, I only expect that to go down over time. So what are my priorities? One, getting our developer community moved over to the Codeplex site, making sure that we maintain good support in the Microsoft forums for Conference XP that we've set up, and a newsletter. We're going to try and do a quarterly newsletter. Someone wanted me to do a monthly newsletter. I don't think I can generate that much content, even with the assistance of the Conference XP community. But we have a lot of tips and tricks that have already come through from end users that are getting posted in the forum. And we're going to try and summarize a lot of that and other event information and development schedules in a monthly newsletter. If you've downloaded the Conference XP 4.0 beta, we were collecting registration information. That's going to go away when we release the 4.0, and all we're going to have is an optional registration for a newsletter. We're not actually trying to track information on Conference XP users other than voluntary, but I think that newsletter would be a valuable resource for anybody who wants to evaluate or even tire kick Conference XP. User and developer workshops, as I said, we're going to make this an annual event. We're also looking at creating a Conference XP roadshow, as it were. We've had strong interest, as we said, from the Pacific Rim area, and we're planning in January to do at least China and Japan, probably Australia, New Zealand tour. We also have our team in India who wants us to come out and hit the IITs and Indian Institute of Science and Technology. So we're putting together a little scaled down version of our developer workshop for that. I mentioned some of the Internet 2 activities we're doing. The 2-day workshop that I wanted to create on content capture is also something we'd like to make into a smaller regional workshop, and something we've been chatting with ACM about, who are interested in helping us deliver something that through their regional conference and workshop infrastructure. Lastly, international infrastructure. I've been trying to get started a node donation program to establish reflectors, venue servers, and archive servers that are regional. So we, unfortunately, that got a little bit more delayed than I would have liked, but we are picking that back up now, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. Most importantly, the reflector, because I want to be able to provide the lowest latency unicast bridging solution for a given user anywhere in the world. So I'll have more on that probably in the next month or two, but I expect to have at least 20 to 30 regional reflectors set up, if not venue servers and archive servers as well. We are working on a... do you have a question, Bob?
Well, about the regional reflectors, will these support endpoints that are behind matted firewalls?
Bob's question was, will the regional reflectors, or in this instance, any reflectors, support clients that are behind natted firewalls? Not with the 4.0, and the answer is no, not with the 4.0 version. So right now we're UDP based. We're looking for a multicast connection typically, and we haven't done anything to do firewall traversal. That is something that, well, the next bullet point. Let me explain that. So we've been looking to form a stronger alliance with someone in academia, an academic center, to establish a Center for Advanced Collaborative Technologies in academia to help us move Conference XP forward. So as I said, we spent the last 5 years and a lot of man hours developing Conference XP. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of things that are particular to academia. So one example, if we did the security for Conference XP, a security subsystem, we've got Windows Live ID, NA Passport, and we've got the crypto APIs that are built into Windows XP, and there we go, we've got a solution. But if we left this to academia, we'd probably end up with something that included X509 support, maybe Kerberos ticket support, maybe Liberty support, something that tied into existing AFS security. So having an academic partner that's going to help Conference XP address the particular needs there, I think, is very important. I also think that having an academic development partner on this will also help attract more National Science Foundation or other funding agency dollars to high-end collaborative technologies development. And so we hope to announce that in January. Other focuses on a number of particular R&D projects, strong support and interest in the work that Mike Wellings is going to talk about at Research Channel at the UW. The UW is also experimenting with Conference XP for their WWAMI classroom, which is Washington, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho, that they use for, I believe, first and second year instruction for medical school students. We're working with the UK eScience Grid group, who are evaluating Conference XP as a high-end solution there. And then lastly, as I said already, the global infrastructure is a priority for me. So, some links for the community sites. Let me tell you a minute before I take questions about what I'm interested in the next 2 days. I would love to meet with each and every one of you and learn more about what you're interested in, what you're doing, and most importantly, what it is we need to be doing. So this is a forum to some extent to educate you about all the different types of projects that are going on, where we're taking the Conference XP 4.0 platform. But I want to meet with you and learn what it is we need to do, where you want to see us take this project. We've gotten a number of requests in addition to the localization of Conference XP. A lot of people want to use Conference XP for ad hoc video conferencing. And in order to do that, they need to have a telephony solution for Conference XP, which today is buy a $4,000 Gentner and you'll get your telephony bridge. Well, you should be able to do this trivially with a $30 analog modem as well. So one of the things that we're doing is bringing in a contingent staff developer to actually add a telephony bridge into Conference XP. Several people have asked me for something that works more like a black box or TV type solution. And I've had some chats with folks who are interested in a Media Center Edition version of this. If you've ever played with Media Center, Windows XP Media Center Edition, it's all about nothing but a little handheld remote and being able to do everything that you need to do. Certainly there are some simple things we could do with window arrangement and with a remote control to be able to enable that sort of experience for basic room-to-room conferencing. But I'm hoping over the next 2 days that I'll get to chat with each of you and learn more about what you're interested in. Any questions? There's a quiz on this later. Okay. Yes?
I agree with you that tools like these should be interesting to use by default for broadcasting seminars and conferences. And no, we do already. Actually, by default, they are sent out by MPEG-2 and media, just like etc. It would be interesting to have sort of a video software distribution framework as well that just distributes your camera feeds into all the different IP broadcasting solutions that you have. Is that something you're considering, or are you thinking of video matrices to distribute those video streams?
I'm not even going to try to repeat that question. However, have a chat with, I'll chat with you as well, but with Jason afterward, and let's talk about specifically what you're asking, the capability that you're asking for. Okay.